with a B.
Oh. They already did. But I'm a good student now. Okay, open up to page 195. It doesn't actually say page 195 at the bottom, but it does say chapter 8 will cover. Okay? Everybody see that? Big atheist book. So this is the logical argument that is this book, and we're going to go over it from the beginning again. And so here's where we were last semester. We started with the idea of truth, and truth about reality is knowable, and we found that to be true. And then we talked about the opposite of true is false. In other words, that two contradictory things can't be true at the same time in the same sense. It's either true or it's false. It is true that the theistic God exists, and then we went through a number of chapters proving the existence of a theistic God. So that is evidenced by the beginning of the universe, which was the topological argument, the design of the universe, which is the teleological argument in the anthropic principle, the design of life in terms of the living things, people, animals, and that is the teleological argument for life, and then the moral law, which is the moral argument. And so at the end of those chapters, we saw that there is a first cause for the universe. Now, we don't know yet what that first cause is, but this logical argument shows us that there is a first cause. So we're going to spend time, a little bit of time, determining who that first cause is. I don't think it's a spoiler alert for you who that first cause is. I think, I don't know if this was the end of chapter 7 or not, but it has to be a personal God, because we see from the attributes of the first cause, we see one of those attributes as personal. And so it can't be like the God of Buddhism or Hinduism, which isn't really a God, it's a force kind of thing. So the first cause has to be the God of Christianity, Judaism, or Islam. Those are the only choices. Those are the only religions that have a personal God. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time figuring out which God is the first cause. But first, we're going to talk about miracles. So if God exists, then miracles are possible. I would go farther than that. I think if God exists, he exists. So what did we learn about the first cause? He's what? Yeah. Omnipotent. He is unimaginably powerful, at least, right? Unimaginably powerful. What else? Present. He's omnipresent. He's everywhere. What else? Yes. He's omniscient. He knows everything. He lives outside of space and time, but rules over space and time. So I would say, I would go farther than saying that that miracles are possible. I would say we should expect if that is who the first cause is, we should expect miracles. He has interacted in the universe already by creating it, right? And be creating everything in it. And so we should expect miracles to happen. So that's where we are in this chapter. And then we're also going to talk about miracles can be used to confirm a message from God. So this is where we're going to find out, talk about Christianity and Judaism and Islam. Because which message is being confirmed by what God has done. So miracles can be used to confirm a message from God. as in acts of God to confirm a word from God. Now, obviously, that's just a bare outline. We're going to dig a lot deeper into it. So, if you would please turn to page 197. We're going to read a little bit. We're going to answer a few questions, and we'll probably be done early today.
I know that's
fun. Yes.
that class plans, that's completely confused me.
I would give you the points, but you did not.
Copacetic.
That's a copacetic plan.
Yeah, that pronunciation was not.
Was that a copacetic?
You said that you weren't copacetic to that pronunciation.
I'm a little disappointed that you didn't find it sooner, but yeah, copacetic is yet another word from my parents that they used a lot.
Someone tell me what that third word is.
The third word?
Copacetic. Satisfactory?
Yeah.
Adjective?
Would you say that your reading skills are not copacetic? Oh my god.
Alright, buddy. Alright.
Okay, as we're on that, this says, if you can't see it, it's a report card. It's a kid's report card. He's talking to his mom, and he says the D's stand for dandy, Mom, and the C means copacetic. So that's just fine. Yeah. Okay, page 190. No. Page 197. Miracles, signs of God, or gullibility. Now, this is C.S. Lewis, so you've got to pay attention. Always pay attention. If we admit God, must we admit miracle? Indeed, indeed, you have no security against it. That is the bargain. Here's what he's saying. If we're going to say there is a God, do we have to say that there are miracles? Yes, we do. There's no denying that there's a God. He can do whatever he wants, that's the deal. That if there is a God, then there will be miracles. So who made the cut? We need to pause for a moment and put together the pieces of the puzzle we've discovered so far. Remember, we're looking for unity in diversity. We're trying to put together the seemingly diverse pieces of life into a coherent picture. So far, our coherent picture shows us that truth exists and it can be known. Any denial of truth presupposes truth. Remember that? You say there is no such thing as truth. You're stating that as a truth. So any denial of truth presupposes truth. So the existence of truth is inescapable. And while we can't know most truth absolutely due to our human limitations, we can know many truths to a high degree of certainty. In other words, beyond a reasonable doubt. One of these truths is the existence and nature of God. From the lines of evidence we have reviewed, the cosmological, teleological, and moral arguments, we are able to know beyond a reasonable doubt that a theistic God exists who has certain characteristics. From the cosmological argument, we know that God is self-existent, timeless, non-spatial, material, immaterial. Since he created time and space and matter, he must be outside of time, space, and matter. In other words, he is without limits. That is, he is infinite. 2. Unimaginably powerful, since he created the entire universe out of nothing. 3. Personal, since he chose to convert a state of nothingness into this time-space material universe, and in personal force has no ability to make choices. From the teleological argument, we know that God is supremely intelligent, since he designed life and the universe with such incredible complexity and precision. 2. Purposeful, since he designed the many forms of life to live in this specific and ordered environment. From the moral argument, we know that God is absolutely morally pure. He is the unchangeable standard of morality by which all actions are measured. This standard includes infinite justice and infinite love. Theism is the proper term to describe such a God. Now, here is the amazing truth. about these findings. The theistic God we have discovered is consistent with the God of the Bible, but we have discovered him without the use of the Bible. Have we opened the Bible at all? In the first 7 chapters. We have shown that through good reason, science, and philosophy, much can be known about the God of the Bible. In fact, this is what the Bible itself says. Theologians call this revelation of God natural or general revelation, that which is clearly seen independent of any type of scriptures. The revelation of Scripture is called special revelation. So we know through natural revelation that theism is true. This discovery helps us to see not only what the true box top looks like, but what it cannot look like. Since the opposite of true is false, chapter 2, we know that any non-theistic worldview must be false. Or, to put it another way, of the major world religions, only one of the theistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, could be true. All other major world religions cannot be true because they are non-theistic. This may seem like a grandiose claim to deny the truth of so many world religions at this stage, but by simple logic, using the law of non-contradiction, mutually exclusive religions cannot all be true. Just as certain football players are rightfully cut from the roster of possible players because they lack necessary abilities, certain world religions are rightfully cut from the roster of possible true religions because they lack necessary qualifications. So logically, if theism is true, then all non-theisms are false. Now, this does not mean that every teaching of the non-theistic religion is false, or that there is nothing good in those religions. There is certainly truth and goodness in most world religions. It simply means that as a way of looking at the world, in other words, a worldview, any non-theistic religion is built on a false foundation. While some details may be true, the core of any non-theistic religious system is false. They are systems of error, even though they have some truth in them. For example, Hindus rightfully teach the truth that you reap what you sow, even though the worldview of Hinduism is that you don't really exist, because everything is part of one indistinguishable reality called Brahman, is false. Secular humanists rightly assert the reality of evil, even though the humanist worldview, which denies an objective standard by which we can detect evil, is false. Mormons rightfully teach that there are moral standards we ought to obey, even though the Mormon worldview that there are many gods is false. This last point about Mormonism raises a question. Namely, why does the existence of a theistic God disprove polytheism? It disproves polytheism because God is infinite, and there cannot be more than one infinite being. To distinguish one being from another, they must differ in some way. If they differ in some way, then one lacks something that the other one has. If one being lacks something that the other one has, then the lacking being is not infinite, because an infinite being, by definition, lacks nothing. So there can be only one infinite being. Now, one could argue that finite beings, or gods, exist that are more powerful than human beings. In fact, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all teach the existence of angels and demons. But that's not polytheism, which denies that there is a supreme, infinite, eternal being to whom all creatures owe their existence and to whom all creatures are ultimately accountable. Since theism is true, polytheism is just as false as atheism, pantheism, and all other non-theistic worldviews. But we digress. The main point is that the right box top for the universe shows a theistic God. That means that only one of the 3 major theistic world religions can make the cut of truth, either Judaism, Christianity, or Islam. Now, logically, all of these theistic religions cannot be true, because they make mutually exclusive claims. Moreover, it could be that none of these world religions is completely true. Maybe they have theism right, but little else. That's possible. However, since we know beyond a reasonable doubt that God exists and that he has the characteristics we've listed above, characteristics that include design, purpose, justice, and love, then we should expect him to reveal more of himself and his purpose for our lives. This would require that he communicate with us. One of the three major theistic religions is likely to contain that communication. So, oh wait, well, that's all we're talking. That's all we're talking. Okay. How does God communicate? As we have seen, God has already communicated to us through creation and conscience, natural or general revelation, which gives us basic ideas about his existence, power, and moral requirements. But how could God reveal himself so that we could get a more detailed understanding of what his ultimate purpose is for us? Why couldn't he appear to each one of us? He could, but that might interfere with our free will. C.S. Lewis has some great insights on this topic. In his Screwtape Letters, Screwtape, the senior demon, writes the following to his disciple Wormwood. Did you read this in 8th grade?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't need to, most of you, I don't need to. It's obviously not a true story, and it's an allegorical story. So this is Screwtape talking to his disciple. Both are demons. You must have wondered why the enemy, meaning God, does not make more use of his power to be sensibly present to human souls in any degree he chooses and at any moment. But now you see that the irresistible and the indisputable are the two weapons which the very nature of his scheme forbids him to use. Merely to override a human will, as his felt presence in any but the faintest and most mitigated degree would certainly do, would be for him useless. He cannot ravish. He can only woo. If he appeared to us in all his glory, we would die, right? And at least be incredibly fearful. We would be forced to worship him. God is not, and he could do that, but his love won't allow him to. He isn't just all-powerful. He's also completely human. And that's what C.S. Lewis is saying, that if we saw him in all his glory as human beings, it would be the end of us. And so he refuses to do that. He could do it, but he refuses to. Yes.
I think that's what's one of those things, like, almost like awe-inspiring. Like, the fact that he has so much power, right, and could make us, right? But then what makes it so, like, wonderful is that he has this power and then doesn't use it.
Right. And I just said he could, but he couldn't in the sense because that wouldn't be loving. And he is love. And it would be coercive. And he is not coercive. That's that last part. He cannot ravish. He can't take over by force. He can only woo. He can only draw us. Okay, so if God has not chosen the overpowering option of face-to-face interactions with every person on the planet, then perhaps he's chosen a more subtle method of communication. In fact, the Bible says God is not always as overt as we would like him to be. Perhaps God has manifested himself in some way to a select group of people over many centuries and inspired them to write down what they witnessed and heard from him. Written language is a precise medium of communication that can easily be duplicated and passed on to succeeding generations. Yet it also can be easily ignored by those who freely decide that they don't want to be bothered with God. So a book would work as a valid but not overpowering means of communication from God. But whose book? Has God communicated through the book of the Jews, the book of the Christians, or the book of the Muslims? How are we supposed to tell whose book, if any, is really a message from God? Okay, so there we stop and we turn in your little atheist books to the chapter 8 introduction. on page 58. The name of this chapter is Miracles, Signs of God, or Gullibility. The main idea is as we continue to build a case for God, this chapter argues for miracles and defines their purpose and role in the world. You'll learn, you've already talked about the terms general revelation, special revelation. Miracle, we'll also learn about anomaly, psychosomatic experiences, satanic signs, and providence. So these are the 2 points being made. If God exists, then miracles are possible. I would take it even further and say they should be expected. If God exists, miracles can be used to confirm a message from God. So, question number one. What do we know about God from the cosmological argument? Yes, Eli. He's without limits. What else do we know? Yes. Unimaginably powerful. We can't even fathom how powerful he is. What else? Yes. He's personal. Those 2 things, personal and unimaginably powerful, might seem dichotomous, but God is limitless, right? That's another one. He's limitless. What else? Yes, immaterial. He's immaterial. Doesn't have a body. Blood and flesh body. What else? He's timeless. He's non-spatial. Number 2, what do we know about God from the teleological argument? What?
God's supremely intelligent.
He's supremely intelligent. To have designed and created this complex universe. Unfathomably large, precise universe. What else? Yes. He's purposeful. He designed everything for a purpose. Think of an artist who is purposeful in creating that piece of art and knows exactly what that piece of art is to be. God is far more purposeful than that, but yes, he is purposeful. Anything else? Okay. Number 3. What do we know about God from the moral argument? He's absolutely morally pure, since he is the standard from which we derive morality. He is himself the standard. Which is why we need Jesus, because can any of us measure up to that standard? No, and that's why we need Jesus. And he, before the foundation of the world, knew this and devised the plan of salvation. Okay, any questions on any of this? Okay, that's it for today. We've got some time to rest and relax.